Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I am so pleased you are here, and I really appreciate you being here and listening to the podcast every week. So if you're new, welcome. This is the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. We have some amazing guests. I'm Dupe Witherick, and I have been loving doing this podcast, and I really hope it's helping you, the listener, just think about being alcohol-free differently. And I was thinking, this is episode 60. So we've done 60 episodes. So if this is the first time you're listening, feel free to rewind and go back. But 60 episodes is a lot, but I've had some just fabulous guests. I've really enjoyed doing it. And here's to many more. If you are relatively new to me and to Thrive Alcohol Free and this podcast, then I would love you to maybe check out some of the podcasts that I've been a recent guest on. I've been a guest on quite a lot of podcasts, but in the past couple of weeks, 5 podcasts have come out. And so if you'd like to hear my story and hear me from a different side instead of asking the questions, but actually get to know me a little bit better, then I encourage you to go and listen to one of the podcasts that I've been on. So I've been on 5 recently. Have It All is the first one. Empowered with Linda Brand is the second one. But Jesus Drank Wine and Other Stories That Kept Us Stuck. Been on the Abundance Club, and I've been on Sober Yoga Girl podcast. So if you want to hear about my story, if you want to get to know me a bit better, then I encourage you to go and listen to one of those podcasts. And I also wanted to mention that I've been really enjoying something I've been doing on Instagram recently. So on a Friday night, I have the Friday Night Live. We'll be doing Friday Night Live number 4 this Friday, so tomorrow. And this has been something that I just thought we'd do a one-off of, but actually I've enjoyed it so much, and I think I'll keep going with it. And people seem to be enjoying it. The premise behind it is Fridays are always a bit of a tricky day because it's the end of the week, and you're used to potentially ending the week, whatever the week's been, with a glass of something. So I thought if we go live Friday night UK time, then it might encourage you and inspire you to go into the weekend feeling strong, feeling ready to face the world and not worrying about drinking. And so that's the purpose of it. I will have different guests on each week. And yeah, we'll just have a bit of a chat about being alcohol free, thriving alcohol free, how to get alcohol free, what is the reason you want to be alcohol free, and we'll share tips and stories, and we'll see how long that goes for. But at the moment, it's great fun. Another thing that I'm really excited about is I will be speaking at the Mind Body Spirit Festival in Birmingham next week, which is great. I'm going to be talking on the midlife wisdom stage about finding passion in sobriety. And so if you are in the UK, or happen to be in the UK next week, Friday the 15th, I'll be speaking at 12:30, and I will put the link below where you can, being in my audience, get a 30% discount for your ticket for the day or for the weekend. It's going from Friday to Sunday. So They're going to be some amazing speakers, some fab exhibitions. I always say the question to ask if you are thinking about ditching drinking isn't, am I drinking too much? Am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem? The question is, could life be better mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or physically without alcohol? And so for me, the mind, body, spirit is really what you work on once you ditch drinking. It's the transformational piece. And so the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival, I'm really honoured to be speaking there next week. So come join me. I'd love to see you in person and give you a big hug. Okay, then the other exciting news, which I will talk about more next week and reflect on it in next week's episode. But I will be celebrating 4 years alcohol-free on the 9th of November. So this Saturday, so a couple of days, I will be 4 years alcohol-free. And what really makes me laugh is if I think back just 4.5 years ago, and if you'd said to me you'd be advocating being alcohol-free, you'll be helping female leaders gain clarity, purpose, energy, and passion by being alcohol free. You will be a well-being and transformational coach. You would have written a book about how to ditch drinking, embody a joyful new identity, and thrive alcohol free. You would have started a podcast. I would have laughed and probably on purpose poured myself another drink of something, probably a glass of fizz, and necked it. Just down the whole lot, just to prove a point that you were mad and what the hell are you talking about? And so, having taken a 21-day break, coming up to 4 years ago, 4 years on Saturday, I couldn't have imagined what has happened since. And it's incredible. So I'll reflect on it next week. And I feel if you are thinking about whether or not life could be better without alcohol, give yourself permission to try it, to experiment, to just see whether or not it's something that makes you feel better in some way. And if it does, then who knows where it will lead you to. I absolutely believe being alcohol free is a superpower. It makes you brave and you're not giving anything up, you're only gaining. And life could change in ways that you could just never imagine. And it doesn't mean that your life isn't good now. My life is absolutely fine. But actually, you as a person will change, you will grow, and you'll learn so much about yourself. And I have no doubt good things will come. So, just to encourage you, if you are thinking it might be time, or you're getting those nudges, that inner knowing that actually being alcohol free or taking a break from alcohol could be a good thing for me, then just do it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what people think, what people say. Doesn't matter. Just try it and see. Okay, so today's guest is Kye Dailey, and Kye is 11 years alcohol free. Well, she describes herself as almost 11 years clean and sober, so I should read what she's actually said. And she's now really addicted to all things well-being, which I love. She's a hypnotherapist, a reiki master, specialising in letting lower vibrational needs finally dissolve. So I'm really pleased to have Kye on. We have a great conversation about lots of different things to do with well-being and self-care and hypnosis. And yeah, enjoy the conversation. So without further ado, here is Kye. So welcome, Kye. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so well, thank you. And thank you for being on. I'm really looking forward to our conversation and our chat.
Yeah.
So for those people that might not know you, why don't you do a brief intro of who you are and how you ended up being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast?
Okay, I live in Miami Beach. I'm a clinical board certified hypnotist. It sounds pretty intense, but it really isn't. I'm also a Reiki master, I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. So I came on the podcast and I found you through Instagram, which was, there's no coincidences in life. And I believe that we're on the same wavelength and helping others and really creating this beautiful community of women who are thriving instead of surviving. And yeah, so here I am.
Yay, fantastic, fantastic. And so it's interesting because language has changed slightly as well, hasn't it? So people talk about alcohol use disorder. So I was curious when you said, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. So is that how you see yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because alcoholism for me, and it's just a
Mm.
personal knowing, it's
Yeah.
what worked for me.
Yeah.
Knowing that I have a disease that talks to me and lies to me on a daily basis, I have
Mm.
to always be in awareness of when those thoughts come in. And it could be alcohol, it could be sugar, it could be a person.
Mm.
Relationships are extremely addictive. It could be just self-harm that day. It could be
Mm.
anything that is a way to distract me from loving myself. That's the way I look
Mm.
at alcoholism. I
Mm.
picked up alcohol at 13, so that was like my first real physical allergy, I would say, to anything. But way before I picked up alcohol, people were really my first drug.
Mm.
Smiles were my first drug, people
Mm.
pleasing, trying to
Mm.
make peace in a chaotic home. So, yes, I really was that addict from birth. I believe it
Mm.
was generational.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So maybe do you want to touch on your story
Yeah, yeah,
and
a
why don't
little
we
bit.
start? Let's start there. That
Yeah,
would be
let's give you the cliff notes, because don't we all think we have we call it in Miami a telenovela. It's like we have this soap opera of a life. And I think the biggest misconception about being clean and sober and about being in recovery is that it's boring. And that couldn't be anything further from the truth. But when I really knew that something was not right, was pretty young. I remember, and I grew up in an alcoholic home. And I really remember like thinking it was really bad, like really disgusting. It was walking on eggshells, never feeling safe. Safety was a huge part of my addiction. And so I began very quickly making the enemy, the worst person at the moment, my ally. I
Mm.
really, that's how I stayed safe, staying close to the dark. And
Mm.
yeah, it manifested pretty quickly. I remember a very specific moment in my life. I was in seventh grade and I was like getting off the bus and I was looking at the eighth graders smoking cigarettes. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's so gross. Why are they smoking? And I told myself, I'm never going to do that. And then by the next year, by eighth grade, I was full blown when I picked up. I picked up cigarettes. I picked up alcohol. I picked up drugs. I picked up the toxic relationship. I picked up the sneaky behavior. Addiction for me is just sneaky. It's a way for me to be sneaky with myself.
Mm.
So, yeah. And as you can imagine, from 13 to I think I came into recovery first around 27. I was understanding that this is really wrong and bad
Mm.
and it's killing me. All these angels always appeared, all these seeds got planted. And if anybody's listening to this who's struggling with finding their
Mm.
community, just because the seeds don't prosper a crop right away doesn't mean it doesn't imprint in our subconscious. And all those,
Mm.
I call them earth angels that were just dropped into
Mm.
my lap to send me a message like, you deserve
Mm.
better, or you can do this, or just
Mm.
support. And it calculates into love. That's just all that people need. They need to feel community, they need to feel love. And
Mm.
yeah, over and over, trial and error. I would quit drinking and doing drugs for a while, then I'd go back. And it was just kind of like, looking back, it was actually a soft way to remove it. It wasn't real harsh, but at the moment it felt really harsh because
Mm.
our feelings, we didn't really develop. I didn't start to develop a healthy mindset because I started drinking so young.
Mm.
So I hope that.
Yeah.
gave you
Yeah.
a little bit of a piece.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's so interesting because these are all things you obviously learn afterwards, but it is really important when people start drinking in their teenage years, early 20s. Our brains don't fully form until we're 25, 26. And so we are really susceptible to alcohol, to drugs, to any sort of substance use. And then on top of that, as you say, if you're in a negative environment and you grow up in that negative environment, a lot of our beliefs and our thoughts and our habits all stem back to that. And unless we actually change our mindset through hypnosis and other things that we'll talk about in a bit, but unless you can shift that subconscious mind, which is what we run on for 95% of the things we do is based on that, you're constantly going back to those toxic thoughts, those behaviors, that people pleasing, the whatever it is, because that's what you know. I mean, obviously, you got to the point then that you said enough was enough and you stopped. What happened next?
I think what happened was, and it's funny because if you stay clean and sober long enough, other addictions will crop in and you'll get to see the pattern of the addiction, really, because I swear it's never about the physical addiction, because whatever you decide to pick up to remove yourself from your own essence and your own feelings is going to come again. Whether you drink, whether you do drugs, whether you're in a toxic relationship, it's gonna come again because it's also part of the human experience. I think I identify as an alcoholic in recovery, but I truly believe it's just addiction. And I don't mean to like lighten the load, like say it's just addiction, but the world we're living in today, it's probably 99% of people at this point are struggling with something. And I like to really go easy on myself today. Like I've, had issues with other things in sobriety. It just doesn't mean I pick up my drug or drink of choice. I feel like everything is in divine order anyways. So I think the moment that stuck this last almost 11 years now was no different than any other. It wasn't even my rock bottom, to be honest. I just was tired. I was really tired. And I think I was mostly tired of the thinking I could get out of it myself,
Yeah. And so to pick up on that, I mean, when you say you could get out of it yourself, you kept thinking that this was your responsibility. I don't need anybody. I can just do this alone. And then it just kept not happening.
Yeah. There was a lot of, well, I look back on it because I've done such extensive work with, they talk about the ego a lot in yoga and all this. And the ego to me is not like an enemy. It's not. We need to have some type of, I don't know. I sometimes think the ego can be really like hated on. Sometimes I think the ego is a lot of strength. Our ego could be good too. But if you're in an exaggerated state of anything, you're going to fall short on the humility. And that's what was holding me tied to this addiction was I didn't want to admit complete defeat. I wanted my cake and eat it too. I wanted to be a social drinker. I wanted to be a social smoker. I wanted to be a social user. And that wasn't the case for me. If I like it, I want more.
Yeah. And you described it as not being a rock bottom, which is great. But I think a lot of people just assume that you have to hit rock bottom to make a different choice. And I obviously advocate that that's not the case, and that regardless of how much you're drinking, if it's affecting you in some way, you should stop. But I'd also like to get your perspective on that.
I've had struggles with nicotine. So I'll take that because a lot of my clients, obviously, hypnosis is kind of known for the nicotine addiction. And I didn't pick up nicotine again in my life till 10 years sober. And it was very sneaky. It was extremely sneaky because I missed the whole vaping trend because I was not smoking and I was not even thinking of it. And again, just like that moment I had in 7th grade when I saw the smokers, I was disgusted. So I always was like, oh my God, why is everyone addicted to these vapes? I don't understand. And then one night I was out with a friend and I smelled the vape and it smelled of coffee. And coffee is my love of my life. I'm not giving it up. I refuse. I am not at a rock bottom with coffee. And I smelled this coffee vape and he said to me, whatever you do, don't try this. And what did I do? I tried it. And I went on a nice little experience with this that really showed me the power of my alcoholism. And that it's still, even though it's dormant, just like cancer, if you're in remission, and even though I'm working a program and I'm doing all these amazing things, and I didn't want to harm myself, it was just like the perfect storm. So it's really given me so much gratitude. Looking on the silver lining of this little addiction was it's given me the silver lining to have grace on myself. I have gone so much easier on myself now and my clients. So it's weird how we can shift even that really bad thing into, it taught me a lot.
Yeah, amazing. And I think it is so important that we are kind to ourselves, because actually, if we're not kind to ourselves, who do we spend the most time with? Ourselves. And so we need to really be mindful of what we're saying to ourselves, and that inner critic that comes, and those thoughts that we have about ourselves and not looking after ourselves. So I think that leads quite nicely into what you do with the Dailey Method and self-love. And I'd love to hear, a lot more about that.
Yeah. The Dailey Method's funny, it's my last name. And I didn't really resonate with my last name growing up because my father is such a bad alcoholic. And he really was very abusive. And he would always say, you're cursed, since I was very young. And I think what he was trying to articulate was, I have the family genetics, which is many, many. I'm the first one ever to get clean and sober. So I believe we really carry, an honor for that when we're breaking generational curses. And I very quickly married in life and changed my name and all these things. And it didn't happen until this year, after the vaping thing and all this, because with any addiction, it'll bring out some stuff, some wounds. And I started connecting back to my roots and back to my name and back to who I am. And it just was loving myself. It was a slow, I don't know. It was like daring to love myself finally, without any distraction. No husband. I really connected with source and with my own essence. And it just kind of happened. I created this method. It's very simple. It's a 3-step method. And it's your daily rituals. It's your daily practices, what you do each and every day to make yourself feel, aligned and feel full. And yeah, I feel like with hypnosis, it's just a way to hypnotize yourself. It's just mirror talk, the affirmations. I pull from all the greats, Louise Hay and Marianne Will, like all the people who came before us with this, knowledge of love. That's all it is.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And it's unbelievable what a difference having a daily practice, daily rituals. And lots of people say, I haven't got time for it. But actually, I don't know how long your daily method is. I'd love to hear, but you can do this, spend half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour, that's all you need. And everyone can find half an hour in a day. One of my chapters in my book, it's called 1440 minutes. And that shows how many minutes there are in a day. So you can definitely have 20 of those to look after yourself, and it makes a difference. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about, what your thoughts are on that, and then maybe give one of the steps that is important.
Okay, so for me, it's like, honestly, it's like brushing your teeth. I really would never leave the house without, most addicts or most people who are struggling also are struggling with self-image, right?
Mm,
Because they're not feeling comfortable in their skin. So
mm,
I just tell people over and over, you would never go to an important business dinner or important business thing and not shower, right? And
mm,
they're like, oh, wow, you're so right. The thoughts about the Dailey Method were just understanding that we have to clean our energy. We have to clean our body, we have to clean our physical, every day, but we have to clean our spiritual energy and really take it seriously. I don't want to pick up energies and I don't want to give out bad energies. And I'm human, and there's days where I really take in consideration. Some days I can't see clients because I'm not spiritually aligned. And I take what I do very seriously. And I live in a climate where I can be in nature on a regular. So I
mm.
cleanse in the ocean, I sit in nature, I ground, I do all these practices. And that's really how I developed the Dailey Method. It was really just my daily practices what was working for me, because I'm a member of AA and I go to meetings, but it wasn't working completely. You can't just have one thing that's going to keep you on spiritual lines. So I had to really open up myself spiritually and use what's working for me and then share it with others. And that's just the earth, that's nature, that's where we come from.
Mm. Yeah, and again, you're speaking to me, walking in nature, really taking that time to breathe, to meditate, to pray, to journal, all of those things are so, so important. And actually starting your day in the right mindset makes such a difference,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, you then get caught up with all that potential negative energy, negativity, and you lose yourself. And grounding is something that I would love to do a lot more outside, but it's been raining a lot here recently. So I love the fact that you do that for people that might not know what grounding is, because I think it's a really important
Mm-hmm.
aspect. And I know you can get grounding mats and other things as well to
Yeah.
do it inside, but I think there's nothing like the
Yeah.
grass under your feet and all of that. So maybe tell us a bit about how you found grounding and the benefits that you've seen from it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you can't get to nature, which I understand most live in a climate where it's seasonal and all these things, you can just simply sit on the floor. Even
Mm,
sitting on the floor is so powerful. Like when your nervous system, when you're in that fight or flight, which is
mm,
most people who you're not going to just seek out spiritual help if you're not in some type of pain. So
mm,
usually it's the nervous system that's gone haywire and it's gone so far out because of the thinking, just the
mm,
overthinking and the exaggerated state of being creates havoc on the body. It really does.
mm,
So you kind of spin out, which is
mm,
actually in what we do for work, it's actually the blessing when you
mm,
finally spin out, when you finally, because the Dailey Method is any tool to help you get rid of anything toxic, is that
mm,
surrender. We want you to spin out. Sometimes I have to tell clients, I just don't think you've done it enough. Sometimes you
mm.
need to smoke more until you're really like done. Unfortunately, it's the truth, because if you don't have that desperation, there's no way you're going to go and sit on a floor to calm down. So,
Yeah, it's so true. And it's one of the things that I talk about a lot. You have to be ready to do this. And a lot of people maybe say they want to stop, but they're mindful that they take a break but their partner's still drinking, maybe. And then they think, well, what's the impact on that? And then they try to force their partner to stop. And I say, you can't do that. This is for you. You're doing this for you. Your partner needs to make that decision. Until they're ready, nothing's going to change, and it's just not going to come across, and they're not going to do anything about it. And I do think, as you say, it needs to get to a point where you're truly ready to make something different.
mhm.
And it could be from a pain perspective, and obviously that tends to motivate people a lot, but it could also be from a pleasure perspective. What is it you're trying to achieve that's not working?
Yeah.
Why aren't you getting that promotion? If you're feeling stuck at work and you're going around the same loop every 6 months, every year, when the promotions come around and you're not seeing any change, you want that. What can you do differently that might lead you to getting that? What are your habits at the moment that aren't allowing you to be in the right energy, in the right frame of mind? Potentially it's drinking, potentially it's doing something else, but it's blocking you from manifesting everything that you want to achieve.
Yeah. Yes. And people, places, and things. People can be the biggest block energy-wise. Because remember, people, especially when you're in a relationship and you're physical with that person, that is the biggest energy exchange we have as humans. Like, so you're absorbing, like if one person's still using and the other one's sober, I really truly believe that attraction to stay in that is just your old self who still like trauma bonding. It's almost like the old self who doesn't want to physically do the drugs or alcohol, but it still wants to be absorbed in us in a way. It's like an ill filter or transmitted, like that energy is still transmitted into you. And there's a high that you produce off of people who are still using. This gets really deep.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say to someone who has maybe taken that break from alcohol and stopped drinking and is trying to now look at the self-love piece and the really putting your own oxygen mask on first? What would be the first thing you would suggest they could potentially do?
I would say just be kind, be gentle, be calm on yourself, be easy. We just beat ourselves up. We are our own worst enemy. It says it like in many, many texts. And like you just said, we have to be our own best friend, really, because we're with ourselves. There is no getting away from self. So if you really want to have a thriving life that is the ultimate freedom, it's a free life, freedom beyond. You really have to go in. You got to go in. And I truly believe addiction is just a distraction from loving yourself. So it's whatever you feel like you're picking up at the moment to distract yourself.
Yeah, and I love that addiction is just a distraction to loving yourself, which is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what it is. It's not actually the drink that you want or the cigarette that you want.
Wow.
It's the feeling that you're trying to create or that you're trying to escape from.
Yes.
And so when you say it's the distraction, you're distracting yourself from whatever feeling you're trying to create or escape from, and you don't really know how to get there, and you want it, but you can't get there, and then you want a quick fix. And so it's, what is that feeling? And then based on that, what could you potentially do that's more healthy or positive to still get that feeling, go for that swim, go for the walk, get the natural highs from other things.
Yes. Food is another huge, if your diet, I studied Ayurveda and I got to go to India and stay there a month. And if you really get clean in your diet and you really look at food as medicine and as fuel, there's really not much you'll be eating, to be honest. When you're spiritually connected and you're practicing your whatever you choose physically, whether it's yoga or and your chi is heightened because you're feeding yourself with love and nature and the good endorphins, your appetite is really like, you really look for those wholehearted things. They call it a healthy or a wholehearted or wholesome. That means because it's whole, it's coming from earth. And it's filling you with the nutrients. It's not taking away. It's not a chemical.
Yeah, it's so true.
It interweaves everything, you know?
Yeah, that's so good. And I think what you've designed and the Daily Method is fantastic. And I'd love people to sort of look that up, and we'll get to how
Mhm.
people can find you and everything else. But before we do that, I'd love to hear about the hypnosis and the Reiki that you're also doing, and how did you get into that, and
Yeah,
tell us a bit
crazy.
more about it, because we were talking earlier, I think unless you're in this space and you sort of understand hypnosis, people's view of hypnosis, and people like Paul McKenna on stage making people do silly things. That's our view, and actually it's so much more powerful than that, and it makes such a difference. So I'd love you to tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that. Yeah.
I mean, it really found me. Again, it was one of those divine interventions. I was sober almost about a year when I was married, also, and I was living in Montreal. And I just had time finally on my hands. I wasn't in survival mode anymore. I could really take the time. And my husband at the time was like, why don't you just be and heal? Because he met me when I was only 3 months sober. And very quickly, I left Miami and we lived in a few different countries a couple months out of the year. We were traveling. So I actually sat in meditation one day because I was really like, what is my purpose? I'm newly sober. I loved fashion and all this outward stuff because that's all I knew. The modeling young, the clothes, dress up the outside, but you're dying inside.
Mm.
And I finally went in this meditation, and immediately it popped in my subconscious, and hypnosis just came over my, and it was so bizarre because I'd never heard of it other than like stage hypnosis. And I Googled it out of meditation, and there happened to be a national board certified hypnosis school directly across the street from my husband's clothing store.
Wow.
Literally, I was in school every day looking at my husband's name on the sign. My ex-husband, I should say. I knew, oh boy, this is some type of alignment. And
Mm.
yeah, it just was so natural for me because hypnosis really is guided meditation. It's
Mm.
really that simple. And I
Mm.
just facilitate the meditation. I put you into a meditated state. So the subconscious acts like a sponge, and we can put in
Mm.
any type of positive affirmations that
Mm.
you desire.
Mm. Yeah. And I think that's incredible. And so you work with clients on
Yeah.
hypnosis.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I have a practice in Miami Beach, and yeah, I see clients physical form 2 to 3 days a week because I'm always working.
Mm.
And I also see on Zoom. So I
Mm.
schedule my clients. I can only do 2 to 3 a day because they're
Mm.
pretty thorough. They start with a good 30 minutes of talk therapy where I'm very good at getting to the root quick. And yeah, I always say just give it one try. You're going to feel like, what is this? This is magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And so what are the types of things that people have come to you to help resolve through
Um,
hypnosis?
they often come for a specific addiction, but stay. It's funny because my clients treat it like therapy. So they like to come once a week. Uh,
Mm.
and they often stay for the self-love, for the daily,
Mm.
but they genuinely come for whether it's food addiction, whether it's a toxic relationship, alcohol, drugs, vaping is a big one,
Mm.
cigarettes, porn addiction. I mean, you'd be surprised. I live in Miami Beach, so we have a whole fun community here. Let's
Yeah, I'm sure. That's incredible. And I think it's so important because you talk about, that getting into that meditative state. And it's all about the fact that our
yeah.
subconscious mind is what we run on every single day. And people, again, aren't aware of this fact. And so we think we're completely in control and it's our conscious mind. But actually, 95% of our actions and the things we do are based on the subconscious. And so it's just repeat. That's why people just repeat what they've always done, and they get stuck
Yeah.
and can't get out of the daily habits and patterns that, even if they are negative, they struggle. So
Oh.
being able to relatively quickly shift something that's fundamentally
Yeah.
keeping someone stuck is an incredible, incredible power.
Yes, I love it. And then I teach them the self-hypnosis, which is amazing because
Mm.
this is just me holding space. I'm just really facilitating the mirror. I'm their
Yeah.
mirror, I'm their safety, I'm their security, and until they can understand that they're doing it for themselves. It's almost like
Yeah.
the example, the attraction. It's
Mm.
an attraction because if you are doing spiritual work on yourself, your vibration is high frequency. So you
Mm.
will become a magnet
Yeah.
to a lot of good and a lot of dark. So
Mm.
I teach them to protect their energy. I teach them a lot of, great
Mm.
rituals.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And then the Reiki, how did that come about as
The
well?
Reiki was, yeah, once I did the hypnosis school, I believe that opened many, many doors. I met a woman who gave me the book, Many Masters, Many Lives. It's a very famous book about a famous hypnotist from Miami Beach who wrote this book and changed a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis.
Mm.
And once I met her, and she gave me the book and I read the book and I understood, like, wow, this is really just the beginning.
Mm.
You think you get a certificate or a degree or something, that really is just the beginning in spirituality. I very quickly found, well, I don't want to say found me, I ran into I aligned with a really amazing older woman who was a Reiki master, and she was in Miami Beach, and I started training with her one on one.
Mm.
Again, because I had the time, so I had all this like momentum to, I
Mm.
didn't want to not work, but I didn't want to just be a stay at home, whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, and then after the Reiki certificate and all that, because that's energy healing, that's ancient Japanese. It's an art. It really is
Mm.
an art. After that, I did many, many more. It just kept going. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I think one of the things I say is that when you ditch drinking, you do suddenly find you've got all this time on your hands. But then you end up thinking, and this is what thriving is for me, you end up thinking that actually people who are watching this and seeing this from the outside who are still in wherever they are, they think that ditching drinking is it. That's what it is. And that's why they think people miss out and people are boring and people are weird and all of those things. But for me, that's just the start. And it's all about a personal growth and transformation journey on ourselves. And that's the exciting bit, and the constant learning and the finding yourself and all the things. And you said at the beginning that it's certainly not boring. So I'd love to get your perspective. Obviously, it isn't in your life because you've gone on to do so much more. But maybe for the person listening who's thinking, well, this all sounds quite
Yeah.
interesting, but
Yeah. Yeah.
what could maybe motivate them?
I think, well, what I perceived to what worked for me, was I shifted all that energy because we have a lot of energy, and most addicts and alcoholics are very creative and they're pulling from their sacral chakra, where it really ties back into our instincts were in collision. We were
Mm.
using against our instincts. So we knew before we took that drink or before we went out with that toxic person, we knew our gut was telling us, no, this is bad.
Mm.
And when you push that down and you do it anyways, that's your instincts are in collision. And
Mm.
that feeling of just knowing that you shouldn't be doing something, but you do it anyway, that
Mm.
using against your will is really like powerful. So I had
Mm.
to first get the awareness that that's what I was doing most of my life, and really authentically start connecting to that intuition, connecting to my
Mm.
gut. And I did it through yoga and meditation, all
Mm.
these great ancient practices that clearly work because they've been here
Mm.
for a million years. And
Mm.
once I started connecting to my intuition, I could use it. And yeah, it just opened up so many amazing doors, you know?
Mm.
But
Yeah.
it takes time. I shifted all that addictive behavior into wellness. I said, get addicted to being
Mm.
well.
Yeah. And I think so many people do it. It does seem that people that stop drinking do find yoga, find meditation, find running, find those types of things to keep them in that sort of physical and
Yeah.
mental health,
Yeah.
well-being, and then get addicted to that as
Yes, of
well.
course.
So I absolutely agree with that. Okay, so what else? Is there anything else that you want to share? I think this has been
Yeah.
fantastic.
I think just the message of hope always. If we just continue, I mean, we're lucky. We're lucky we're living in an era where wellness is so mainstream. It doesn't mean that everyone's doing it perfectly. There is no perfect prescription. It's really truly what works for you. It's trial and error. It's going easy. If you relapse, I always say, and circling back to that vaping story, I learned how to not shame myself through all of that because I was like, oh my God, you haven't picked up a drink or a drug in a decade. Go easy on yourself that this crept in. And it was there to teach me. It was there because maybe I picked that up instead. What if I was going to pick up a drink? You never know. I hear these stories at 10 years sober. All of a sudden, I'm not an addict anymore. I'm doing great. And very quickly. So I just believe there's always a silver lining. And we are living proof that our poison became our biggest solution in a weird way. It brought us to ourselves. And like you said, maybe you don't have to go all the way down. I always say I got off at the right floor. I didn't get off. I was young. Like I knew something's wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
again, it's just connecting to that intuition and saying, I can do this. And when you have a group of people around you, that's why AA works. That's why group therapy works. You feel empowered. There's more power in we.
Yeah.
It's not just about me.
Yeah, I love that. There's more power in we. Absolutely. Community is so important when you're
Huge.
going on this sort of journey. And yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I always end our conversations with the famous question, what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you? Hi.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I didn't prepare. I never prepare. I always say, God, speak through me. Thriving to me is, I would go back to the trusting my intuition and using it because it's one thing to trust it. It's another, because I speak for myself. Remember, I am human. I am no saint. I see it, I feel it, I know it's wrong, but that old me wants to do it still. So I really think when I am thriving and I'm completely aligned with source, there's no way I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not even a question. So taking that time for the spiritual care. It's not even about self-care anymore. It's the spiritual care. Because there is no self without my it doesn't exist. I don't believe that it's self-care. I think it's spiritual care. And I too am writing a book. It's so challenging, as you know, and it's called Spiritually Surrounded.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
We've got to write. Got to
Yeah.
get this out there, what we went through.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
yeah, spiritual care.
Oh, well, I can't wait for when's your book coming out? When are you
Who
hoping to?
knows?
I love that. I love that you're writing it. Best of luck with it. Let me know if you need
Who knows?
anything. So
I
yeah,
need a
that's
lot.
fantastic.
Trust me. I need a lot of help.
What's inspired you?
Oh my God. I think it's the years and years of people saying, when are you going to write the book? And I'm just like, again, it chooses us. When you
Yeah,
really are aligned, you don't really have a choice anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really that inner knowing, that intuition. And for me, that was one of the reasons I said that actually I'm going to take this 21-day break from alcohol and go from there, because I had a real inner knowing that kept getting louder and louder, this nudge that kept saying, listen, just take this, just stop. Alcohol isn't serving you. At one point, just before I stopped, I really heard the truth will set you free. I didn't know what it was, what I was going to be set free from, because if you looked at my life and you looked at where I was, there was no reason for me to be free of anything. And I obviously didn't see that as alcohol setting me free from anything. But I do believe the person that might be listening and thinking that there's this intuition, there's this inner knowing that actually this isn't serving me, it's not helping me anymore, then do something about it. Don't just sit there and wait for it to get worse. Get off the right floor, as you say. It's the right floor for you. Just do it.
There is a soft approach. It's funny. Everyone thinks you got to be, this hard approach.
Yeah. Well,
this
Kye,
lovely.
I've just really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And so how can people get in touch with you?
My Instagram is the Dailey Method, and my website is linked on the Instagram, Miami Beach Hypnotherapy. So yeah, I would just send them to the Instagram. Instagram is so good.
It's how we met. The alcohol-free movement, sober movement is amazing on there as well. So you get to meet amazing people.
I've had a great experience with Instagram, but I also don't look for the comparison. I'm trained.
Oh gosh, we could have a whole another episode on comparison and it being the thief of all joy and all of that. So.
Don't waste the time.
Absolutely. Well, this has been lots of fun. So thank you. And we'll speak again. Take care.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Kye. I do hope you enjoyed that conversation. I really thought her Dailey Method is a great thing. And I loved what she said about thriving alcohol-free, which is all about trusting your intuition and using it. And intuition is just key, and knowing how to make aligned decisions and knowing what to listen to, which part of your body to listen to, is very close to my heart. And one of the things that I do through my coaching is human design, and human design is all about your energy centers, how to make decisions, how to really use your energy in the right way to make decisions, and how to really go through life with ease and not struggling or feeling like you're pushing water uphill all the time. So yeah, I loved what we talked about with Kye. And if you are interested in maybe understanding yourself better, then I would encourage you to find out more about human design. You can go to my website, thrivealcoholfree.com/human design. And I'd love to do a session, or feel free to grab one of the personalized reports on there. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. I hope you have the most fabulous week, and I will see you next time. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.